Paris AI Action Summit, co-chaired by France as well as India on 10th and 11th of February, concluded yesterday and brought global leaders together, from Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi and French President Emanuel Macron to US VP JD Vance and billionaires like Sam Altman and Sunder Pichai to discuss the future of artificial intelligence, focusing on sustainability, ethical development and inclusive global governance. The US stand against over-regulation and pro-AI growth was clearly expressed by JD Vance, even as Prime Minister Modi pushed for trust, transparency and inclusivity using AI for social good. While India, China, Japan and Australia were among the 60-odd signatories, the US and the UK refrained from endorsing joint communique, making it clear that the world is split on its approach towards AI. Meanwhile, India is set to host the next Global AI Summit later this year. On the show today, we ask, trust or transparency versus over-regulation? Where is the AI story headed from here? Open source for society or build for businesses? What is the AI code? How will it model going forward? And ethics versus profitability. In fact, can AI find a solution, a sustainable midway? Whether there will be a balance found between ethics and profitability going forward. And also energy guzzling data centers that they operate on. Should green AI be a priority, given that AI is not going away anytime soon? Those are some of the questions we'll be pondering over. Joining me on the show is Anurag Dua, partner EY. Also with us is Dr. Srinath Sridharan, policy researcher and corporate advisor. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out. I want to first come to you, Srinath. There seems to be a clear divide today on where the future of AI is headed. And that divide was, more seen and prominent during the course of discussion on AI Action Summit in France yesterday.
Morning, Shweta. I think it's a kind of a misnomer to think that the governments are going to agree on anything as a consensus around AI. We've been speaking about this for, I think, last 1.5 years. AI is going to be the newest power tool, call it a geopolitical tool or a sovereign tool. And while every nation would want to use the word called collaboration, but it will come as a subset of their, I think, ownership and influence in the global domain. So I'm not a great fan that we're going to see, you might have all the signatories, nations coming together and signing, but how do we even know that they're not developing something on the side, at the background, on their own, and with deniability? And the challenge with AI is you can build in a lot of deniability because there are no regulations. That's one. Two, how do we even regulate? Governments, sovereigns, by principle, want control, want to feel in charge. But AI is going to suddenly pull that rug under them, saying that, hey, do you even know what you're talking about? And I think that's the biggest challenge with that. There are concerns about, can you even regulate AI? We have had this debate in India about should we put guardrails or should we have regulations? Could we keep changing, update the regulations as we go along? And I think not much has been done around regulatory framework, even globally. You look at the three different distinct models that we have today in AI regulation. You have the laissez-faire US regulation, which is more about deregulation, wanting the market forces to shape it. Then you have EU, which believes that regulations and controls and sanctions would work. And then you have the Chinese model, where everything around AI, whether it is private sector or state-owned, is actually about statehood, that the state will have dominant control for it being a tool. Where does India come into this picture? And I think that's my concern, more as a citizen, not just as a policy researcher, that we don't seem to know what we want.
Anurag, do you agree with that? We're not sure of what we want. Although Prime Minister says we want trust, we want transparency, but as Srinath was pointing out, it's very difficult to be able to trust any other government and any other country out there that says we're not doing enough or we are open to sharing what we know so far on AI. And we saw that by the way of DeepSeek coming in as a shocker to perhaps everybody around the world.
No, in fact, I do agree with Dr. Srinath on some of the points that he mentioned. And I would say we are still a bit early days to have that debate on trust versus transparency or ethics versus profitability. I think in the times to come, probably we'll solve some of those things. I think Paris Summit, at least one of the things that I see has been good is that at least we have started discussing on a global framework. There are talks of global collaboration, and I'm sure there would be differences that will be there. Dr. Srinath is talking about those three models how China, EU, and US are looking at it. I believe, at least the way I see, and as a practitioner, Shweta, I would say there's a lot of potential that exists, and especially for countries like us. And as I see, and again, I'm reiterating that as a practitioner, I am seeing a lot of engagement now that I'm witnessing, at least in the market, from a government side itself.
Okay.
And Prime Minister Modi did talk about some of those things. He did talk about skilling, upskilling. He did talk about AI writing the code of humanity. But on the ground level, also, I see a lot of engagement now, especially in sectors which are agriculture, health, and these are some of the sectors I personally work in. Benefits
And you're
delivery
saying,
systems.
Anurag, sorry, you're saying that you're seeing government actively participating. Could you give us a sense of where is government participating and how?
I'll give examples. So there are specific sectors, Shweta, and I was telling some of them, say agriculture, the way the delivery systems of the government are working, public delivery systems, uh, areas around taxation, areas around MSME growth. So these are some of the sectors where I see a lot of participation from the government, and government participation on two sides, Shweta. One, definitely what we see out there in the media about the data centers, about governments uh, investing through their AI mission, the GPU story, and all those things. That's one part of the story. Second part of the story is actually government taking a lead in productionizing use cases of AI. And I think that's one of the key things where I see a lot of government support coming up. Uh, People would have seen the recent 3 AI centers of excellence that have been set up, specifically focusing around sectors, which is agriculture, health, and sustainable cities. So that's something which I see as a big thing going forward. Those
Okay.
debates around the trust and transparency, ethics, profitability will keep happening. And I think we will evolve as we see how some of those use cases are actually getting productionized, Shweta.
All right. I'm sure we'll evolve. You know, one of the conversations that unfolded that was also keenly watched and reported, Srinath, was whether DeepSeek, because that's been something that's taken the entire AI industry by storm, whether France, EU, or India is going to allow its use, free use. And we saw that French President clearly said that we don't follow the US model, and we don't care whether the tech is made in China or Russia. We use it as long as it's good for the society at large. India is, of course, also not suggesting that there could be a regulation on DeepSeek or Chinese tech just as yet. I think the underlying message here is, as long as that code, that open source code is built for society, it can help businesses around the world. There need not be restrictions on it. Perhaps that is something we could see going forward into the year?
Shweta, I mean, theoretically, yes. And I'm using the word theoretically because a lot of these global summits are very well stage managed, event managed, and well crafted outcome statements that come up, right? There's a lot that happens behind the scenes. And this is where my cynicism is. About 18 months ago, we did have the UK summit, which spoke about risks and ethical issues in AI. And if you look at it, nothing has come out of it. Not a single white paper of any single country or collaborative statement has come out after that. So this is yet another summit where, if you remember, US has not signed the joint declaration so far. It's a clear message that US doesn't care about it. I think President Macron's statement about them not subscribing to the US model is out there in the open. So the challenge is, it is just, my fear is just like the corporate India uses hashtag ESG almost to paint themselves as the glorified green saviors. I think this is no different from government saying, hey, we understand AI. And I'm actually challenging to Anurag's point. Governments don't have an option but to adopt AI in e-governance and their platforms. That's I think the brutal reality that we speak. It's almost like saying, hey, you know what, governments started using computers and PCs in 1980s. They didn't have a choice. It was a market force. So similarly today, I think the governments globally are using AI, and India is no different. And we must take pride. In India, the innovation around digital pipeline, the UPI, was actually initiated by the government and the RBI, not the private sector. So in India, government has shown, I think, the path that they can innovate. But in the AI space, I think the entire narrative around AI mission, the funding around it is so narrow, so small. And the centers of excellence are so inward because we are missing one large conversation in the room. If you don't have a very robust STEM ecosystem and R&D support, you really cannot fight this AI battle. And my fear is we will extend becoming what we already are, a nation of cyber coolies. Our ITS space has been just cyber coolies, labor arbitrage. We have not grown up the value chain. And in AI, that's a large concern. You look at Perplexity and other AI platforms. Why are the founders moving abroad and settling in and actually developing AI? Why are they not seen as an Indian company? I think there is something that we are not able to pull it together. It's not just about funding, it's also
Okay.
about the ecosystem.
So are you of the belief we don't have the right ecosystem just as yet, but we are getting there? I assume that's the message that was coming in from the Prime Minister yesterday, that we are getting there. We are ensuring that there is a path towards more AI adoption. And you're right, Srinath. I mean, in this country, you've seen government taking the lead when it comes to developing UPI or any other such digital public infrastructure goods that, in fact, Prime Minister also talked about yesterday when he was addressing, the AI summit. Anurag, going back to you, I think this is a debate that I think will be on for at least next couple of months before we have some clarity on where India stands when it compared to its global peers on AI development. But I have to ask you, there is a constant debate on ethics versus profitability. What we saw coming up as a non-profit organization, OpenAI soon became profitable, is now becoming a business which is unrivaled, unparalleled at the moment. Where do we stand when it comes to these global giants like DeepSeek or OpenAI for that matter, and where do you see India standing in its dream to be an AI, perhaps a place where AI gets more space to grow and develop going forward?
So Shweta, 3 points. If I see you have mentioned, first that probably will take couple of more months or some more time. I would say it will be more than that. At least that's what I see.
Okay.
Because things will take some more time to evolve, and Dr. Srinath also mentioned that. Second, how do I see some of those things such as DeepSeek and OpenAI? I believe at some point in time, Shweta, while yes, the debates around ethics and governance and transparency will keep happening, but definitely the scales I see will be tilted more in favor of commercialization over a period of time. At least that's what I see, because end of the day, whatever we are doing will have a commercial aspect at some point in time, which will be more visible as we move along. And how do we put those guardrails? What Dr. Srinath was mentioning initially. So those things we'll have to see how as we move along this journey. But yes, commercialization will take, in my view, it will take a precedence over a period of time. That's what I see. On an India story, recently we saw that India is talking about now developing their own foundational models. So some of those initiatives are happening. I will not get into the debate that Dr. Srinath mentioned about cyber bullies and are we producing really something. So that's a very old debate. So
Okay.
I'll stay out of that for now. But yes, at least I see 2 or 3 things that definitely India can bring. Definitely a lot more investment into the research and thinking through why people are moving out and going somewhere else. So that's definitely, that remains a key point. But I also see India as a big test bed for AI, given our diversity, given our population and all those things. So there could be certain areas that India could really pick up in their AI leadership journey. I also see one of the big areas that I think everyone is talking about it is about skilling in this particular area. I have been even discussing with some of the academic institutions on how to really infuse AI right from the beginning. So there are certain areas where definitely India can take a time moves along. How
Right.
much are we able to develop our own foundational models? There have been views area also. You must have seen that there are views on both sides of this, that should India even go for their own foundational models and all those things. But yes, in the journey, I see that India at some point in time will evolve and have some leadership position, at least the way UPI and some of the other DPI story has unfolded in the country.
All right. Good to see that you're optimistic, Anurag. But thank you very much for taking time out. Thank you for joining us on that big AI story. There continues to be a divide globally, of course, between India and some of the signatories of that communique as far as the AI summit that concluded in Paris yesterday. But the more developed countries, Western countries, are refrained from signing that communique. I'm not too sure whether they want to be a part of that joint communique that talks about greater transparency and adoption of AI for global good.